The Backrooms is probably one of the most interesting internet horror concepts ever created, mostly because it doesn't really rely on traditional horror. There aren't constant jump scares or over the top monsters everywhere. Instead, the Backrooms is built around a very simple idea that somehow became incredibly effective online: the fear of being trapped somewhere endless and unfamiliar with you. The concept first became popular in 2019 after an image of an empty yellow office-like room was posted online. The room itself looked completely normal at first glance. It had fluorescent lights, stained carpet, and yellow wallpaper, but people immediately found it unsettling because the environment felt strangely familiar. It looked like somewhere you may have seen before in a dream, or somewhere you've walked through briefly in real life without really thinking about it. That feeling is what made the backrooms explode online. People began creating stories and lore around the image, eventually turning it into a massive collaborative universe with hundreds of levels, creatures, survival guides, and theories. The basic idea is that if somebody accidentally no clips out of reality, kind of like glitching outside the map in a video game, they can end up inside the backrooms. Some levels are relatively safe and survivable. Others are extremely dangerous either physically or psychologically. And over time, the lore became surprisingly detailed, with different groups of survivors, documented entities, supply systems, and even entire communities supposedly living inside certain levels. So in this video, we're going through the first 10 major background levels, what they look like, how dangerous they are, what entities exist there, and how people supposedly survive or escape them. The Backrooms originally started as a creepypasta, but eventually evolved into something much larger through collaborative storytelling online. Different communities began creating their own interpretations, adding new levels, entities, and rules to the universe. The two biggest sources for Backrooms lore today are the Wikidot and fandom communities, both of which expanded the idea far beyond the original image. One of the reasons the Backrooms became so popular is because of something called liminal space psychology. Liminal spaces are environments that are meant to be transitional places like empty schools, hotel hallways, parking garages, waiting rooms, or office buildings after hours. These places feel strange when they're empty because our brains expect them to contain people and activity. The Backrooms exaggerates that feeling by making those environments infinite and disconnected from reality. Another reason the concept became so successful is because the horror feels believable in a weird way. Most backroom levels aren't fantasy landscapes or supernatural dimensions filled with magic. They are familiar places taken completely out of context that makes environments feel grounded even when the lore becomes bizarre. Eventually, creators began adding survivor colonies, supply systems, hidden organizations, entity classifications, level difficulty ratings, and escape theories. And over time, the Backrooms became one of the largest collaborative horror projects on the internet. Level 0. Level 0 is the original Backrooms level and easily the most recognizable. This is the yellow hallway environment most people associate with the Backrooms itself. The level consists of endless rooms connected by hallways and corners that all look almost identical. Yellow wallpaper covers the walls, the carpet is damp and smells like mold, and fluorescent lights buzz overhead constantly. One of the most important things about Level 0 is that the layout does not behave normally. The geometry changes constantly, hallways loop in impossible ways, rooms subtly shift, and distances don't feel constant. Two people entering a room together can supposedly become separated almost immediately, which is one of the reasons the level is so psychologically stressful. Interestingly, Level 0 is considered relatively safe compared to later levels because entity encounters are uncommon. The real danger here is isolation. Most wanderers report losing their sense of time very quickly. Some claim they wander for days without finding another person or any reliable exit. Others report hearing footsteps, distant conversations, or movements around corners despite never really actually seeing anyone. The fluorescent buzzing is another major part of the level. It never stops, and according to most stories, the constant noise slowly wears people down mentally. Hallucinations and paranoia becomes common after long periods of wandering. Some lore versions also describe Level 0 as having inconsistent physics. Objects may disappear temporarily, rooms may seem larger inside than they should be, and audio sometimes behaves strangely, almost as if sounds are echoing from impossible distances away. Most survival guides recommend conserving energy and continuing to move steadily rather than panicking. People usually look for environmental changes such as darker hallways, flickering lights, and walls that feel unstable, since those areas sometimes allow people to no-clip into level 1. Level 1 is where the backrooms becomes much more survival focused. The environment changes from yellow office rooms into a giant industrial warehouse filled with concrete corridors, pipes, storage areas, and flickering lights. Fog often covers parts of the floor, making visibility worse in certain areas. Unlike Level 0, Level 1 introduces entities for the first time. It is also one of the first levels where wanderers began finding supplies. Crates and storage containers sometimes appear throughout the level containing canned food, batteries, tools, flashlights, and almond water, which is one of the most important resources in Backrooms lore, because it supposedly helps reduce psychological effects and restore sanity. One of the biggest dangers in Level 1 is darkness. Large sections of the level lose power frequently, and many entities become more dangerous in dark environments. Smilers are one of the most famous examples. Most descriptions portray them as glowing eyes and huge smile visible in darkness, although their full appearance is rarely seen. Hounds are another common entity here. They are aggressive humanoid creatures that move on all fours and attack violently when provoked. Facelings can also appear in Level 1. These are humanoid entities with completely smooth faces. Most are neutral unless threatened, although some versions of the lore describe hostile variants. Another interesting part of Level 1 is that some of the group's survivors supposedly established temporary camps here due to the availability of supplies. However, many people avoid trusting strangers here because later levels introduce entities capable of imitating humans. Most survival advice for Level 1 focuses on staying in lit areas, conserving resources, and avoiding unnecessary risks. Since the level introduces basic supplies and survival conditions, many people consider it one of the more manageable early background level as long as you remain cautious. Level 2 is usually considered one of the first genuinely dangerous levels in the backrooms. The environment consists of endless maintenance tunnels packed with pipes, machinery, steam vents, and narrow industrial corridors. Compared to earlier levels, the atmosphere here feels significantly more hostile. The heat inside Level 2 can become extreme, especially in deeper tunnel systems. Some sections are reportedly hot enough to cause dehydration within a few hours, which makes water management here extremely important. The constant noise from machinery also creates a major problem because it becomes difficult to tell whether sounds are coming from the environment itself or from nearby entities. One of the most infamous creatures associated with Level 2 are skin stealers. According to the lore, skin stealers imitate humans by wearing human skin and attempting to blend in with survivors. Most stories describe them as almost convincing but slightly unnatural. Their movements may feel stiff, their speech can sound delayed, and they often maintain strange facial expressions for too long. Other entities such as smilers, crawlers, and hounds are also common throughout the level. Since visibility is limited and the environment is highly repetitive, getting lost is one of the biggest dangers here. Level 2 is one of the first levels where many wanderers supposedly experience severe paranoia. The constant mechanical sounds and claustrophobic corridors create an environment where people often begin imagining movement nearby even when nothing is there. Most survival strategies focus on memorizing routes, avoiding dead ends, staying hydrated, and remaining cautious around strangers. Service elevators and emergency exits supposedly connect the Level 2 to Level 3. Level 3 is one of the most dangerous early levels because of both the environment and the amount of entities present. The levels resemble a massive electrical complex containing generators, server rooms, exposed wiring, machinery, and maintenance tunnels. Power outages happen constantly throughout Level 3, and when the light goes out, visibility becomes almost non-existent. Many wanderers report hearing distorted voices coming from the intercom systems or machinery. Others claim generators activate independently or that electrical systems continue functioning despite obvious damage. The constant mechanical noise is another major problem because it becomes very difficult to hear approaching entities. Smiler and hounds are both extremely common in Level 3, and many stories also mention insanities, which are humans who completely lost their sanity after spending too much time in the backrooms. Electrical hazards themselves are also extremely dangerous here. Flooded hallways, exposed wires, and unstable generators cause constant risks, even without entities present. Some lore versions suggest that Level 3 may somehow power portions of the backrooms itself, due to the sheer scale of the electrical infrastructure present throughout the level. Most survival advice focuses on staying near stable light sources, conserving batteries, avoiding exposed electrical equipment, and moving carefully through dark sections of the level. Elevators and maintenance servers sometimes connect to Level 4. Level 4 is considered one of the safest major levels in the backrooms and is often used as a recovery area by wanderers. The environment resembles a large office building filled with cubicles, conference rooms, vending machines, fluorescent lighting, and functional electricity. Compared to early levels, resources are much common here. Food, water, and almond water can be found here relatively easily, which makes the level important for long-term survival. However, level 4 still contains psychological dangers. Many wanderers report becoming emotionally numb or losing motivation after spending too much time there. The repetitive office environment creates a strange sense of false normality, almost making people forget they're trapped in the backrooms at all. There are also reports of strange phenomena such as computers turning on by themselves, typing sounds coming from empty rooms, or messages appearing on the monitors without explanation. NCD activity is lower than in the previous levels, although smallers and facings can still appear occasionally. Most people use level 4 to gather supplies and recover before continuing deeper into the backrooms. Level 5. Level 5 resembles a massive vintage hotel containing endless hallways, hotel rooms, staircases, boiler rooms, and large ballrooms. This level is well known for its strong psychological effects and frequent hallucinations. Many wanderers report hearing ballroom music throughout the level even when no source is visible. Others describe hearing whispers, footsteps, or conversations in nearby rooms despite the hotel appearing empty. Mirrors are also another major part of level 5 lore. Some stories claim reflections appear distorted or delayed, while others suggest mirror may briefly show entities or alternate versions of the room. Common entities here include smilers, hounds, and death moths. Death moths are large, moth-like creatures that can become aggressive depending on the situation. Some sections of the hotel are reportedly much more dangerous than the others. The boiler room areas are considered especially hazardous due to high temperatures, poor visibility, and increased entity activity. Most survival guides recommend ignoring unexplained sounds and avoiding unnecessary exploration. The hotel layout is highly repetitive, and many wanderers reportedly become trapped wandering the same sections repeatedly without realizing it. Level 6. Level 6 is one of the darkest and most psychologically stressful levels in the early backrooms. The environment is almost completely dark, forcing wanderers to rely on flashlights or improvised light sources. Unlike previous levels, visibility here is extremely limited at all times. Many people report severe paranoia and auditory hallucinations while traveling through level 6. Voices, footsteps, and movement are commonly described even when no visible entities are present. Smilers are particularly dangerous here due to darkness, and some stories mention additional shadow-like entities that remain mostly unidentified. One of the biggest dangers of level 6 is panic. Since visibility is almost non-existent, people often become disoriented very quickly and waste resources unnecessarily. Most survival advice focus on conserving light sources, remaining calm, and moving slowly rather than rushing violently through the environment. Level 7. Level 7 consists primarily of partially submerged houses surrounded by endless ocean water. Most of the level is underwater and many areas are extremely dark due to the depth of the water. The level is heavily associated with isolation and fear of deep water. According to the lore, a massive unseen entity known as simply as the Thing inhabits the deeper areas surrounding the house. Most reports describe hearing large movements beneath the water or seeing shadows moving below the surface without ever fully seeing the creature itself. Drowning is one of the biggest dangers in level 7, especially because navigating underwater sections can become confusing very quickly. Most people attempt to escape through the submerged passages leading deeper into the back room. Level 8. Level 8 is a giant underground cave system filled with webs, narrow tunnels, and hostile entities. The environment is extremely claustrophobic, with many tunnels barely large enough to move through comfortably. Arachnid entities are commonly associated with this level, and large webs often cover sections of tunnels and caverns. Death moths also appear here frequently. One of the biggest dangers in level 8 is navigation. Many sections of the cave system look almost identical, and getting lost is extremely common. Falling hazards are another major problem here because many tunnels lead into deep pits or unstable areas. Most survival guides recommend making paths carefully and avoiding unnecessary noise when possible. Level 9. Level 9 reserves an endless suburban neighborhood at night. Streets, houses, sidewalks, and streetlights extend infinitely in every direction. Unlike early levels, Level 9 feels strangely realistic, which many wanderers find deeply unsettling. The houses appear normal from the outside, but most are considered dangerous to enter. One of the main themes of this level is constant feeling of being watched. Many people report seeing movement behind windows or curtains shifting inside supposedly empty homes. Entities commonly associated with level 9 include widow entities and the neighborhood watch. The neighborhood watch refers to humanoid figures believed to patrol the streets and monitor wanderers throughout the level. Most survival advice focuses on remaining outside, avoiding suspicious houses, and continuing to move on rather than staying in one location for too long. Level 10. Level 10 resembles endless farmland and wheat fields stretching across large open landscapes. Compared to previous levels, it's generally considered relatively safe. The environment contains barns, dirt roads, fences, and occasional farmhouses scattered throughout the field. Food resources are more common here than many early levels, which makes it another useful recovery area for survivors. However, isolation remains a major factor. Since the fields stretch for enormous distances, many wanderers underestimate how easy it is to become lost. Some stories also describe movement within the wheat fields at night. Although NCD activity is much slower compared to early levels, many survivor groups supposedly established temporary farming settlements here due to the lower danger level and availability of resources. Most survival strategies involve staying near structures and avoiding wandering far into open fields without landmarks. One of the reasons Backrooms became so popular online is because the environments themselves feel believable. Most levels aren't fantasy worlds or supernatural dimensions filled with constant action. They are familiar places that have been made infinite, empty, and disconnected from reality. Office buildings, hotels, warehouses, and suburban neighborhoods and school are all environments people recognize immediately, which makes the backrooms feel strangely realistic compared to the more traditional horror settings. Over time, the backrooms evolved far beyond a simple internet image. It became one of the internet's largest collaborative fiction projects, with thousands of people continuing to create new levels, entities, theories, and interpretations every year. And honestly, that's probably why the backrooms continues to stay relevant, because the concept itself is simple enough that almost anyone can imagine what it would feel like to end up here.